Hello, this is Kishkisan, and today I'll be talking about Tritros's deck submission, 3-color Necro. It's a very interesting deck, mainly because it plays 3 colors. And uh, 3 colors are usually not correct in Mythgard. There are a lot of exceptions though, but they are usually in Fires of Creation path, as the Fires of Creation can fix its gems with the forgelings, as each forgeling gives divination. However, Disc is not different, that different, as it gives us a lot of divination from each usage of the power. So we can definitely fix our draws easily with Disc. However, being Necro also allows us to uh, to to not care about the uh, the the gems for the top end in our deck. So for instance, we don't need the gems to play the Kushiel if we just get it from the Necro. The issue obviously becomes what happens after the Necro is dealt with. For example, it's sealed. How do we are we able to play our threats? And the answer to that is usually yes, because we still didn't play a lot of the heavy gem. We don't play a lot of the heavy gem orange colors for cards, for example. So we can usually just be able to drop them. But it's definitely going to be a little bit more of a struggle than in dual color Necro. So it's more of a give and take. There are definitely some pros and cons for this approach. But most remarkably, this approach of going multiple colors in a Necro deck allows us to mitigate some of the weaknesses of a certain color combo for Necro. So for instance, green-orange Necro is a very nice deck, but it has a couple problems. One of those problems is its inability to heal, which purple can solve, and on the other hand, green-purple Necro has a couple of problems, of which the most obvious is its inability to deal with whiteboards, and orange can fix that with the Armageddon Angel, for instance. So it's a little bit of the colors working in harmony to fix each other's issues, and I think a lot of 3-color Necro decks exist on ladder, but I haven't seen a green, orange, purple combination before. Most of what I see is yellow, blue, green, as these are very much capable of activating their Necro very easily. And it allows the Necromantic to play in a very aggressive style. This, however, feels a little bit more mid-rangey, almost control-like, with all the Sword Saints and our ability to heal for a ton. And if we're able to get to the late game, we can usually just stick a big minion and win due to that. The Herald of Conquest as well is a very nice payoff for playing the color combo of orange and purple, and it's usually very hard to play from hand as 8 cost, but it's an excellent discard, as the effect is immediate when it comes on board. It makes everything we have become a lot more scary, and it can be very difficult to deal with even later in the game, as when everything gets +2/+2, you run the risk of really finishing the game very quickly. Triennial Patrol, for example, becomes really huge stats on the board, and the Herald of Conquest is really something that I didn't expect to fear as much as I do when I play against Tritros. I played a little bit against Tritros and he was on this deck, so I was aware of how good the deck is, as I have not been able to win against him. Uh, there's also some nice things that Treaters has included in the deck, And I think the House Elf as a one drop is something that's very nice. Being able to play Orange also allows us to play the Sign of Pride. A Triennial Patrol is also very nice to contest the board and to just have something big play on the board. And Reincarnation is a card that's kind of hard to get value from because a lot of our stuff are going to be ephemeral if they're coming back from the Necro. But we don't really need to get back a lot of stuff to get value from Reincarnation. It's usually we just want something that costs 5 or more. And with how our deck is constructed, we're usually going to have that situation happen. But we shouldn't get too greedy with Reincarnation. So yeah, there are very interesting decisions for in the deck building of this deck, but it definitely works. And Tritros' win rate with this deck speaks for itself. As I think he told me that he has an 80% win rate, if I recall correctly, with the deck. So that's very promising indeed. And I'll note that this is before patch, so maybe the patch changes stuff, and maybe Treatris might change his mind, but he told me he does not expect that the patch will change how he builds this deck. So, yeah, I'll have a couple of games to show, and, yeah, let's get down to it. So the first game I'm showing off is me against Tritros, and, this game, Tritros is the one on his own deck, the 3-color Necro deck, while I was playing my yellow-green Necro deck, which I hope to feature in a future video. But it was an interesting game that I played against Tritros, and we'll be seeing the game from Tritros' perspective. It's quite unique because I've never had this situation happen where I'm playing against the creator of the deck that I'm featuring. So I think this is a nice game to show for that reason. And it's also a show-off between two necromantic decks. And I would think that my yellow-green necromantic is favored because of how it has ability to activate the necro using the Foul Harvest, and its ability to control the board very efficiently with the Misanthropia, for instance. But we'll see how this game goes, as it definitely went in a way that I did not expect. I think this was a game that we played in tournament. I don't recall which tournament. It was, I think it was about 10 days ago. But it still remains a very interesting game. And this is still before patch, so maybe the patch changes some of these stuff. But yeah, let's see how the game goes. So there's nothing happening much, and I decided to discard the Stadium Hulkin, and gives me the ability to activate the Necro and ramp into the second Stadium Hulkin in hand. While Tritros doesn't really open with a Necro, while I opened with 2 Necros, which is definitely something that's a high roll. Tritros, however, finds the Sign of Pride, and that Sign of Pride is going to put a lot of pressure on me for the whole game. And when I saw the Sign of Pride, I thought that this was the correct line, as I really needed to kill the Sign of Pride here. But there's definitely it's possible that the correct play might have been to just activate the Necro and ramp into the second one, but I needed to kill the Sign of Pride, as it would definitely just control a lot of the board, more of the board than I am comfortable with. And I think maybe burning the Stadium Hulkin was not correct on my part, as yeah, it forges the Stadium Hulkin, but on the other hand, what am I gonna play on turn 6, for example? If I'm able to get value from the Foul Harvest next turn, for example. Anyway, so that Sign of Pride is going to be a big issue. And the reincarnation here is just going to be very backbreaking for me, as these prides of places are very daunting to look at, and your opponent will often just misplay when they see the pride of place, as it's not very clear what is the correct play. Do you just play something big to force the pride of place out, or do you just go wide and make it so that the opponent cannot invest the 2 mana to play the pride of place? But this was really something that I did not. This was not a position that I appreciated to be in, and the Necro is a spirit as well, so you can't really contest the Sign of Pride with a Necro, as the Sign of Pride will just kill the Necro and Pride of Place whatever comes out of it. So yeah, it looks like I'm ahead on board, but I'm definitely feeling a lot of pressure. And I think I crumbled again under this pressure. Um, my plan was probably to use the Anheli next turn. And the Tritros is just keeping the played the detained and deported, and it just counters the stuff that come out of the necromantic this way. And there's not really much that I can do. I'm still at 6 mana, and I need 1 more mana to play my big stuff. And the Sign of Pride is still on the board, so it feels like this is not actually that good for me, as anything that I play is just going to get Pride of Place. And it's not only just once, but twice because of the double Pride of Place. So the reincarnation really decided the game to an extent. And at this point, I really didn't have a play other than the Misanthropia. But even with the Pride of Place still in hand, Tritros was able to just use the Pride of Place and still push 4-phase damage, and I'm forced to play a second one. And I was also aware that he can just do the same thing with the Pride of Place over here. But that was really the only thing he could do. And having wasted my double Misanthropia, Tritros goes wide with the Triennial Patrol. And that's definitely the correct decision, as he can just play the Herald of Conquest next turn. And since this was a tournament, I was aware that he had the Herald of Conquest in his deck. And I was really worried about the Herald of Conquest coming down and buffing these up. And I hope to contest the board as much as I could, but it's definitely there wasn't a lot that I could do here. I probably needed a Plague Maidens to do something about this. And Tritros decided to wait for a turn to see what happens. He just Pride of Place. I think he could have just played the Herald of Conquest to kill the Iku. I'm not really sure. But there was no reason to rush it, and he definitely went with the
What is lost?
with a very viable line. And yeah, the Herald of Conquest here just sets up lethal beautifully. There's not much that I can do. I'm at 1 health, and I didn't find the Wonder Drug. And even if I did, this is not a board that I want to deal with on the next turn, as I'm probably dead on board anyway. So yeah, Tritros just wins off the Herald of Conquest here. This Smite next turn is just lethal. There's nothing you can do about that. And the Reincarnation comes back to hand. He could even get the Triennial Patrol, I think, or the Herald of Conquest for free. So yeah, Tritros won that game, and it was quite an interesting game. We can see how the orange and purple sides of the Necromantic deck, his Necromantic deck, work together to put a lot of pressure on me. And I was definitely not able to deal with it. The double Sign of Pride from the Reincarnation definitely played a huge role in that. And the Herald of Conquest was shown off as a great finisher. The overrun and the +2/+2 is not something that's really to be taken lightly. It's extremely scary, especially in a situation where you're racing the opponent. And necromantic decks are very good at racing because of the smite, dealing 1 extra damage when you're at lower health total than the opponent. So there's a lot of it allows a lot of plays that Tritros used very nicely to defeat me. And yeah, for the second game I'm playing against Lucky Polito, and he's playing yellow-green control. And the reason I'm featuring this game is because the ending for this game was quite interesting. And yeah, there's not much going on, which is to be expected against yellow-green control. And yeah, we're not able to find the Necro, but even if we did find the Necro, I'm not very excited to play the Necro anyway, as yellow-green can definitely deal with the Necro in a lot of ways. So the best way to do that, I thought, was to just keep putting a lot of pressure to force them to play their board clears or their stuff that deal with the stuff that I want to get back from the Necro. And we're dealing a lot of damage to yellow-green, but that's usually not much of an issue for the yellow-green player, as they have a lot of healing from the Wonder Drug, for instance. And this play I was really worried about Plague Maidens, as just 2 taps just lets him connect for 11 damage, or I mean 13 damage, sorry. And the Slayer from the Trinal Patrol came really relevant here. And I was not worried about a Murmur here, and I really wanted to get out the Murmur, but the opponent can definitely see the Deported in hand, so of course he would not play the Murmur. Yeah. This Misanthropia is not that bad for me, as I can just deport a perfect grade back to hand. But I wouldn't do that if I had a better play in hand. So, yeah, Lucky is just doing yellow-green stuff, and I find the second Detain, and I don't think burning the Detain there was correct, as it definitely exposes my, definitely exposes me to a Murmur here. Even a Murmur on the Vixen would be kinda hard to deal with. I would have to play the perfect grade. It's not the worst thing in the world, and probably my opponent will not Murmur Vixen, because the perfect grade answers that easily, but Murmur is really a concern here, even as the opponent has the Bold Mountain, so he can play double Murmur. And yeah, I'm keeping the Murmur also for the artillery, as I don't think this deck has any other way for dealing with artillery. There's also the Seal of Exile, but until I find the Seal of Exile, I'm keeping the Murmur for the artillery. And yeah, the opponent indeed finds the Murmur and the artillery.
What is lost?
I decided to just go wide here to discourage the opponent from playing a big minion like Eco or something like that, as I can I will try to push damage with, especially when I activate the Necro, I'll get the Herald of Conquest, which will allow me to push a ton of damage. So yeah, the opponent just ignores what I'm doing and goes with the artillery, which is definitely a very strong line. And the opponent is comfortable doing this, as he has the Murmur in hand as well. So if I Murmur the artillery, he murmurs it back, which is kind of funny. How the Murmur how the artillery is going to change hands here. And I decide to actually discard the Racer here, as I feel like the Biting Blade is something I need more than the Racer, especially since the artillery is on the board, and I was also thinking that the opponent is going to Murmur it back. And I thought that discarding the racer is much more. The biting blade is more valuable than the racer for that reason, and there aren't really a lot of things that we can racer down with, uh, for against yellow green. So yeah, it's not that good for me here, as I really need to. I think that was a misplay on Loki's part. I think also using the second ability here was not correct, as the second ability is very useful for a lot of stuff other than. I think I should have played. I could have played the perfect grade over here. However, this also plays around the second murmur, as when he plays the artillery, when he gets back the murmur from the artillery, he's not able to play it on the same turn. However, I think if Luki had kept the volition, he would be able to get back the murmur and play it on the same turn, simply just using the artillery effect, then getting back the murmur, then volition, and move the artillery, and then murmur my perfect grade. But having wasted the volition, I don't think that's a possible line now, unless he top decks a second volition. I really doubt that yellow green control plays double volition. So I think this was the correct play, and I was looking to gain as much life, and I thought I would put the biting blade on the sword saint rather than on the necro, as I always don't like to buff my strongest minion on the board. And I can see the detain deported in hand, and I would much rather my sword saint get deported than my necro, as the sword saint has an awaken effect that is quite strong here, as I'm trying to gain life to get out of the range from the artillery, as there's also a second artillery usually in yellow green control decks. But the opponent ended up having the corrode equipment, so didn't matter. But I also have the second sword saint. So yeah, the opponent is not able to play the murmur here, even though he got it back. So he's gonna have to try to survive for one more turn here. And I get very low here, as I'm not able to deal with these stuff. And it's not. I'm not really sure that the play that I did was the best one. There was no way. There was actually a way for me to shoot my own necro to get back the Herald of Conquest. And then overrun here after just overrun the artillery and playing the short stack to get back a racer. I think that was possibly lethal. The overrun here only needs to do 2 damage, and I think with 8, and this is at 8, I don't think it does the 2 damage necessary, but it's a very interesting line to consider. I need to think if that's actually lethal or not. Maybe with Sword Saint, but that's probably too much mana. It's a very interesting line, however. But I think maybe with this might it would have been lethal. It's something that I should have considered. I don't think I considered it during the game, as I was just trying to clear the board rather than thinking about finishing the game. I did not think I have lethal. So I killed the artillery, expecting full well that the perfect grade is going to get murmured next turn, and I was also trying to uh, to 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 just invest some kind of on both sides of the board, so that even that murmur doesn't affect me that much. I would only be worried about evolution here,
What is
I was
lost?
hoping to top deck a Detained or Deposit, and I thought this was the correct play here, because I don't want to kill the Necro outright, as I don't want to give the opponent an easy way to play the Deposit, as he'll just deport the Herald of Conquest if it comes out on his turn. So I'm dictating the trade in this way, and I was expecting the Herald of Conquest to come out on my own turn using this play with this play, and it would force it would make these setup lethal very nicely. However, the Ledistray, the Murmur, and the Corrode equipment put an end to this. However, the Choice Sack getting back the Racer along with the Smite finishes the game. And that was a really nice game. It also shows how strong the Herald of Conquest is. And Tritros really made quite a strong deck. And it was very fun to play this deck. And I hope you have fun trying it as well. It's probably going to get even better after patch, but I think Tritus is the say on the matter. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hope to see you in my next video.